we actually successfully made this adapter comments. I have it right here. This is the code for it. Let me show you it real quick. We did this by using test-driven development and other standards like solid design principles and domain-driven design and more. But yeah, as you can see, if I run the test, you will see that it actually succeeds all 3 of the tests, and that it actually stores a comment in the database. And that's exactly the comment that we wanted it to do to make. So next up for us is actually making the API. So this is going to be what we're doing today. We're going to not make a website. We're going to actually create the API only, and by using tests, we will determine whether or not our API endpoints are working correctly. I'm going to make the API with REST, not with GraphQL. I could make it with GraphQL as well, but yeah, let me know in the chat or in the comments if you want me to do that, because I would love to do that, but some other day. So for now, we're just gonna make it easy and make it a RESTful API. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Before I'm going to start the API, I want to come back to my previous videos real quick, because I've got some comments and I want to address them real quick. First of all, last video ended with me having issues with the test that actually put something in the database. I couldn't get my fixtures to work. And the reason for that was that just that week that I recorded that video or streamed that, Liip actually updated their functional test bundle to exclude the fixtures trait from the web test case. So if you want to make a test like I did with the use of fixtures, in the new version of Liip functional test bundle, you will actually have to install a separate package, which is called the fixtures bundle, the test fixtures bundle. And if you use the fixtures trait that it provides, you can actually use the load fixtures that we wanted to do in the first place. So that's number one. Secondly, let me check. Secondly, there was a question if I could show all the content in the Docker dev folder, which I could do, obviously. So the Docker dev folder is basically just a folder that we use for development. We use Docker Compose to create a Docker image, and the Docker Compose actually uses the files from the Docker dev folder to make it. So if you are in the Docker dev folder over here, you can see PHPUnit, which has configuration for Xdebug locally. You can see some other configuration stuff. Most, for me, important, the time zone, which is Amsterdam. I live close to Amsterdam. And yeah, PHPUnit stuff. Also the Nginx configuration, which is just a server with the root towards the public folder of Symfony. It also does some other stuff, like, for example, creating an access log and an error log. And it does some magic with PHP and, well, stuff like that. Gotta tell you, I don't know exactly what it does, but it's important. Then we have the Docker file. And the Docker file is actually the most important one. As you can see, it uses the adapter comments, since it's basically out of date right now. It uses PHP 7.3. And it uses Xdebug 2.70 RC2. If you want to do and create a PHP 7.4 project, which is currently the most recent version, we will try that as well. You will have to change this to 8.1. If you change it to this, then you can work with PHP 7.4 in your project. Oh, oops, that's not control. So this is the Docker file that actually installs a lot of packages for us and make sure the extensions are enabled for those packages. Then it changes our work directory to /app and runs Composer, and then copies our working directory to /app. So it actually can create a volume. So that being said, last comment I want to address is that the text was really small. So I changed it to be bigger, and let me know in chat and in comments if you guys can read it more properly. All right. So I'm going to put this thing to a side. If it lets me, there we go. So I'll put it away, and we're actually going to start a new project. A new bare bones Symfony project called, let me see, clear. Let's call this API comments, obviously. So if you go to the website from Symfony, you will see here that you can create a new project, but you can also specify a version behind it. So when you are in your terminal, just make sure to paste it correctly. Let's call this project API comments, but we're going to be specifying the version to 4.99. This will actually use Symfony 4 instead of Symfony 5. Symfony 5 has been released already, so I think it's actually 4.4.99, but I'm not sure. I think so. And we're not using Symfony 5 yet because since I used Symfony 4 in the other projects and the other videos, I want to keep this the same version. So for now, let's just make it this. I hope I did this correctly. And if not, I will fix it. The thing is, Symfony usually just puts 0.99 as their last version before they release a new major version. I guess this is correct. I will not be explaining every little step that I am doing in this particular first steps like I did in the other videos, because I already did it in the other videos, so it's really unnecessary to actually do that again. I will do it pretty quickly this time. So we go to API/comments, and there we have it. And now we're opening it in a new window. There we have it. So first thing I'm going to do is, as you can see, there is this basic little stuff, clean project from Symfony. I'm going to use Composer to install the PHPUnit bridge again. While this is going, I'm also looking up the Symfony Symfony Docker. Not Docker. Symfony Doctrine bundle. Jesus, that was hard. Wait, hang on. I want the packages. Packages.org. Doctrine bundle. There we go. And install this as well. I think it's gonna make me want to install the ORM thing again. Yep. So Doctrine, Composer require, Doctrine, ORM. There we go. And let me get the Liip functional test bundle instantly as well, because we're going to use it anyway. So Liip functional test bundle. Yep, and let me install now, this time for real and instantly, the test fixtures bundle right here. So I'm not spending like 2 hours again to try and solve it midstream. All right, after this, I need my Docker instance. So I'm just gonna copy paste what I had earlier on. So first things first, I'm going to open up the other one as well, right here, and just copy paste my Docker dev folder into here. Same counts for the Docker compose file. It just installs nginx, PHP with the from the Docker file, and a MariaDB database. Now that we have that, we just do Docker. I said Docker compose up, and it will start building the thing for us. All right, now it's starting, as you can see. Already going to open up a new terminal window for me already. And as you can see, PHPUnit has made the test folder for us. All the other vendor packages are done. Our Symfony is running, as we can see, probably see, because we are going to check it out right now. See if there's a clean Symfony install right now. There we go. Symfony 4.4.4, which is probably the latest version. And we're up and ready to go. One more thing. I'm going to configure PHP Storm to work with the Docker now. So we can actually run our tests through the Docker image. Did that before, so I'm going to do this pretty quickly. We're going to create an interpreter that listens to the Docker. It will find the Docker image from the API. It will recognize PHP 7.3, I think, which is, yeah, I'll keep it at 7.3 for now. When I will probably make it 7.4 in the near future, but let's just keep it 7.3 for now for easy stuff. So 7.3. Changing the document root on the Docker to /app instead of /op/project. This is pretty funny. It uses PHP 7.1. Ew. That's interesting. I'm going to change that soon. Anyway, test frameworks, PHP by remote interpreter. Okay, we got this done already. Now we want to do this. Path to PHPUnit.var, which is /app/vendor/bin/simple PHPUnit. If you do this a lot, then you know this out of your head. We'll change that in the future. PHPUnit.xml, apply, okay. And we, of course, have to make that file. First things first, I want to see if everything works. That being said, we also, because we're using microservices and we're going to be coupling this towards AWS in the near future, we want to have an I'm Alive endpoint. This I'm Alive endpoint will, again, like the other microservice, make sure that there is a health check available, and also will be like a good test for us to see if we got the whole environment up and running. So first thing I always do is create this I'm Alive test. So I'm creating a folder, I am alive, which is like my bounded context for the I'm Alive controller, and then I create a I am alive controller test. Easy enough. We use extends web test case from the Liip functional test bundle that we got here. We create a test and we say public function I am alive returns status code 200. So this is what we're going to test right now. Of course it fails because we haven't written any code yet. So we don't have to check if it fails because you can fairly assume it fails. And after that, we're going to literally just get rid of these directories. We don't need them here. It's funny that the controller is over here because in our services, there is this as well. I usually just get rid of everything instantly. The only thing I forgot to do was create the bounded context for I'm alive. So I am alive. And I actually put these folders inside my bounded contexts every single time. We don't have a domain in I'm alive and we don't have an application in I'm alive. So I'll just keep it like this for now. we will create the I am alive controller. And this thing will simply do one thing for us. Public function. Let's call this, I don't know, index. It doesn't really matter how you call it, because it will only do one thing for us. It will return a response from the request that we got. Request. Of course, we want to create a response. And we want to extend the abstract controller class of Symfony. So I don't really think it's actually necessary, but I like to do this for every controller, so I know that I'm actually coding a controller. Let's just return a new response for now, saying I am alive. You can put your status code in here if you want to, like 200, but that's default, so I'm not going to. Then in our test, I've got to actually create a test. So far it goes test-driven development, right? Oops. What we want to make is we want to create a client. So this create client. And client should do client request, I believe it is called. Yep. And we're going to do a get request towards, why isn't it automatically filling for me? There we go. URL is obviously API comment I am alive. Let's just call it like that. I don't know. And then we want to this assert equals 200, and let's go to client, get response, get status code. Okay, so this is the thing that I should have written earlier before actually making this I'm alive controller class. I'm sorry. So we have this client that we made. We want it to go towards this route, and we expect a 200 status code from the response. This will fail because this endpoint does not exist, so we're going to create it. Let's just run it. I don't know. You guys will see that there is no route available. Blah blah. Specified non-existing. Oh yeah, this is really interesting. This is something Doctrine does for some reason, and I have no idea why. It really wants to use the entity folder. And let me just see if I can. There it is. So let me just like put this away for now. Can I do this before it's actually bugging me? Sort of. Same thing, different day. The file controller does not exist in, of course. And this is something Symfony does as well. We actually have to like in our routes. Where is it again? Let me see. Routing? No, routes. There we go. This whole routes folder you can just like delete because it's ridiculous. This is some auto configuration Symfony gives you automatically, and you don't need it at all, in my opinion, unless you want to really, make more complex routes. There we go. No route found for I'm alive. So we just have to make it right now. Go to routes. Let's call this route the I am alive route. Path is what my apologies. This. And then we have to specify the namespace and the function of the I'm alive. So obviously the namespace is exactly this. I am alive controller, and the function name is index. So yeah, let's just run this again, see if it works now. And it works. So here we have it. This is our first really working functional test. It checks if the I'm alive controller actually works and gives back a status code 200. it does. So we are happy campers over here. All right, now the real fun starts, because right now we have this database that the adapter comments makes when we run the comments adapter, but we want to recreate this within our own API. And the reason is that you want these little microservices like the API and the adapter to be able to run separately from each other when you are developing them. So someone should be able to actually work on the API at the same time as someone else is working on the adapter. And so what we usually do at my job is we basically recreate the Doctrine structure of the database and mock it inside the API and make the adapter responsible for the migrations. So if you look at the adapter again, you will see that we have made migrations for it right here. So this adapter, this guy is responsible for actually creating the tables and make sure everything is up to date. However, our API will just have to recreate it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the database and actually recreate this one in this thing. And how we do that is by actually first making the test for the thing that we want to get. So we want this API to be able to get comments out of the data store. So the first thing we're going to make is a test that actually gets a comment out of the data store. So let's just make a directory called infrastructure in my testing folder. And let's just, create a test called comment. Think of a creative name. Naming things is the hardest part in programming, as you can see. Let's say comment endpoint test. I like that name. It extends, again, a web test case, and it will it will be a test again, public function, and this time it says a comment is retrieved from the endpoint. So now we have this test made. Of course, it doesn't have anything in it. So what we want to do is we want to create a client again. This create client. It will actually do a GET request because we're making a REST API, and the route that we're going to specify. Oh wait, I'm making a mistake. Hang on. Sorry, we need to create a client and then specify a request is client request, and this is get with like the URL, let's say /API/ comment / let's just call this, because it's a comment endpoint, let's call it comment. The reason I'm doing this doubling over here is because you will have like comment, you will have like over here, you have like a thumbs up endpoint. You will maybe have even like an edit endpoint for edits. So maybe you can even say this is get comment, but for now let's just call it comment. And we will make it so that if you put a get request, you will actually get comments, and if you put a post to it, you will actually post comments towards it. But the reason I'm doing this doubling over here is that this is the name of our API, and this is the method we are actually using. So when you are linking this to a load balancer in, for example, AWS, you can actually specify that every URL that has the pattern API comment in it will be routed towards this microservice, and the method it will call is the comment method. Then we want to have this, assert equals. Of course, I'm doing one more mistake. Let's just call ID 1. So we want to have comment 1. I don't want a list of comments. I just want a specific comment for now. So yeah, comment number 1. Is that actually normal? Yeah. Okay. So this table has ID 1, so that's okay. Let's just say we want this thing to say hi Denny. And no, wait, I'm mistaking over here. This is a JSON API, so we want the result to be like a JSON file. So let's actually put that in here. Let's make a fixtures folder and say, for example, response.json. And I believe I already have one in the adapter. So let me check it out real quick if it's already existing. Yeah, that's actually really funny. So this one is the one that's from the event. But so let's just do it like this right now. ID is 1. Oh wait, this is say like that. So now we have this ID 1, user ID is that, topic ID is that, and the comment is hi Denny. This is the response we want from the API. Maybe we even want like a count equals 1, and then like comments in an array. We can do that. That's maybe a bit nicer, But let's just get rid of the count for now. But comments is really unnecessary as well, because we're literally getting one specific comment over here. So we don't need the array part. We can refactor this to be an array later on if we want it. For now, let's just keep it simple and don't overdo it, and just get this JSON response back. In our test, we want not this assert equals, but assert JSON file equals yeah, that's actually a good equals JSON, a string equals JSON file. Let's do that. JSON string equals JSON file. This will actually make sure that the request get response. Wait, hang on. Sorry, I'm mistaking. Client get response get content. There we go. Will be equaling the JSON file, and this should be a path if I'm correct. Actual JSON, yeah. Slash fixtures slash what did we say? Response.json. The reason we are doing this is because this will get rid of irritating spaces and line ending issues. It will just check if the JSON is correct, but it will ignore the spacing stuff, which is what we want. So now that we have our functional test up and running, this thing doesn't do shit yet because we haven't made this endpoint yet. We haven't made anything that can handle this. But what we do have is like a ground rule of what our application is gonna look like. So we actually we know now that we want to have an endpoint that does this. we want it to respond with a JSON that looks like this. So now, according to this test, if you work test driven, you're allowed to make this endpoint. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to make this endpoint. So configuration, routes, let's say comment endpoint. It has a path. Why is this like that? Let me do it like this. The path is this. As you can see, the name itself is okay right now. And this, of course, has to be a variable. So I believe variables are like this in Symfony. I haven't worked with variables in routes a lot. So I'm going to check that real quick. But for now, let's just define this towards a get comment from data store handler. Or maybe even better. No, I want this to be single responsible, so I'll keep it like that. Get comment as JSON. So we have this comment ID. It will go to this thing over here, and it doesn't go to the I'm alive in controller. Let's just make our bounded context comment. I like that. So let's just make this comment bounded context over here, and actually make the comment bounded context over here as well, and actually put our infrastructure thing over here, and make sure to actually edit the namespace, because test comment, there we go. It's a little nicer, right? And now we're going to make this infrastructure thing, infrastructure with a small thing. Now we've made the infrastructure folder, we're now going to make the comment endpoint. As you can see, I'm literally actually using the same type of folder hierarchy for my tests as the normal code, because then it's actually easy to find the test for the thing that I'm writing. This endpoint needs to have extends abstract controller, so it knows it's a controller. And of course it has to have, because we defined that, a public function called create comment. Actually, I'm a moron. I need to refactor this to comment endpoint. There we go. This is actually a lot nicer. Get comment as JSON. Sometimes I do stuff accidentally the right way, and I just need to remind myself. So yeah, get comment as JSON. This will have a integer with the comment ID, and it will return a JSON response for now. So if we want to get this test to work, we could just do like return new JSON response. Oh, oops, I said JSON response. And as you can see, we just have to put in the data over here. So if I, for example, just like put these quotes over here, get rid of this, and put the fixture response over here, I think the test will now fail because I haven't put it in there yet. Oh, failed exerting the file blah blah exists. Oh, oops. I think I made a mistake in my test. Let's just refactor this to JSON string equals JSON string. Because if we do file get contents, it will get the JSON string anyway. There we go. So, of course it fails, because if you look at the difference, you see that we expect nothing and we actually get this. So this is also wrong already because we have to turn this thing around. So this thing goes here because this is what we actually want, and this is what we want to test. So let's run this again. Look at that. We want this to be here in this test, but we actually get nothing. And that sucks because we want this test to work. We have this variable. So we have this comment ID. And I want this comment ID to be an integer, obviously. And I want to check the database to see if we have a comment with that ID. So in this function, I will have to create a repository and check the repository for a comment that exists like that. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. So we have this comment, we have this infrastructure layer. Next up is a comment repository test. There we go. And it extends a entity repository out of my head. And it has a public function. Oh, no, sorry, this doesn't extend it, of course. This is the test. A public function get comment. No, the test is actually a comment is retrieved from the data store. Let's make this add test again. If you're watching all the videos so far, you should be able to see like a pattern how we program this. Making the tests first before it actually putting it into our controller over here. So we have this repository test. We say, yo, I have a repository. Repository equals this get repository. And I'm making this a functional test because we actually want to get stuff from the database. And we can put this away. And now the fun begins because we have a private function get repository. But this repository has not been made yet. So how can you make actually the working repository? Well, this is funny because we're going to configure it now. So let's say I want this to return this boot kernel get think wait hang on boot kernel get container. Yeah, I was already thinking what get container. Yeah. Okay, and then test the app slash let's actually say test dot comment repository, comment repository for now. Maybe we're going to change that later on, but we want to get this service. This service does not exist yet, so we're going to make this service now. And since we want it to be a repository, we're going to make the repository now. So we have this infrastructure. We're going to create this comment repository over here. This one actually extends the entity repository from Doctrine, and it will have a public function get. Well, let's actually call it get comment, and it will retrieve a comment object for us, which we have not made yet. So since we want to return this comment, which we not have made yet, we're going to create it. We do that by, again, making a test for it. So domain, because an entity is part of our domain, we say entity, and then we create this comment entity. And this comment entity will have the same variables as it had in the adapter, which is this. Private ID, user ID, topic ID, and comment. Obviously the same stuff that we expect it to return. So yeah, now we have made this comment. You can actually make this the comment test because I'm in the test folder. But this is how the comment will look like. So let's just make this public, hang on, class comment test. I keep mixing up my tests and my entities themselves. Extends test case. There we go. And then we say at test, lol. Public function, a comment can be created. There we go. $comment is new comment. This assert instance of comment class. Okay, this thing does not exist yet, but we're going to make it right now. So we're going to remove this. This test fails because we have not made the comment yet. So now we are allowed to make the actual comment. Again, sorry for my mixing ups. I'm trying to do this a bit too fast, maybe. Comment. And this thing, yep. This thing will have this. And we want to have it a public function construct. And actually just, let's just say string, no, this is an integer. ID, string, oops. I said string, $user ID, string, $topic ID, and string, $comment. So this ID equals ID, this user ID equals user ID, this topic ID equals topic ID, and last but not least, this comment equals $comment. For now, this is enough. We will have to create the setters and getters soon. Actually, only the getters will do for now. But for now, this is enough because we can make it, and our test only wants this to work. So we can do like 1, A. And you should work now as well. Oh, oops. Lol. I'm sorry. There we go. If you run this now, a comment can be created. So we have made a entity test driven right here. So back to our repository, we can actually import the comment now because we have defined it. We know what it is. And let's say get comment by ID because this is what we want. This is what the repository will do for us. So we got here a string of integer ID. And we will actually have to use a little bit of Doctrine right now. So in an entity repository that we extended, you can do _em. Oh, lol. And find. And I believe you can do find one. No. Maybe because the repository, it's in this one. There we go. Find one by. That's the one what I wanted to do. But I think you also have a find ID. There we go. And this is the primary ID. So this is like a shortcut for us. So I think if I do it like this, bear with me, this should work. Equals this find ID and return $comment. Object return, obviously. So yeah, we want to define comment as a comment here because Doctrine doesn't, the code doesn't know in what the return value will be from this function. It can be everything. So in the editor, we actually define that the return value will be a comment, so we don't get like all these weird highlighting. However, as you can see, we still do not have any configuration for Doctrine whatsoever. So that's about time that we're gonna make this right now. So we got this environment over here, and we got the test environment, and the test environment doesn't have a database URL. So first things first, let's actually make that database URL in our testing environment. Database URL equals. Funny thing is, if you just made and run the tests for the adapter and there still are some comments in here, you can actually use the same database for your API, but you don't want to do that. You want to actually make every test single responsible, and every test you want to make every test like responsible for creating their own resources if they need it. So that's what we're going to do as well. If this sounds fake, it will get yeah, pretty clear in a second. So yeah, we have this database URL set up. We go to our Doctrine configuration over here. We say, yo, we have a dbel with this database URL. We don't care about comments. And what we want to do is we want to create this. Yeah, let me see. There we go. And these three should be over here. Oh, let me just, can I do it like this? Yeah, I can. That's nice. Also, let me just, for the heck of it, define the other stuff that's in here. Because we're probably gonna need this as well. So yeah, this is our configuration over here. Copy pasted this from our adapter. And right now you can see that this is totally wrong. We have to change this towards the place where our configuration for our comment entity will be. And I like that. I love that to be in my infrastructure layer. So comment infrastructure. So over here, comment infrastructure. And then we create this folder in the infrastructure layer, of course, called config. I like to do this lowercase, so the namespace, you can clearly see this is not a normal namespace. And let's just do ORM. And the prefix is the prefix that it will listen to for a for what the entity has. So we have this entity called comment, and this is actually the namespace that it wants to listen to. So for every entity that starts with this namespace, hang on, give me a second. Why is the... Oh, I forgot to make the entity folder here. Yep, I did. Okay, let's create that real quick. Put you in there. I love to create a folder specifically for entities, so I can group them. I was already thinking, where's my entity? Entity over here. For every entity that has this namespace, it will check for the configuration inside this folder. So we have to put a configuration with the same name as the entity called comment.orm.xml. The orm.xml is actually really important because it's the standard way for Doctrine to look for XML files, if you use XML files. I've copy-pasted the exact configuration for Doctrine we configured in the other one. So let me fix this real quick, because copy-pasting is bad. You actually want to type this all over. But if you do it really careful and letter by letter, you can actually see what you're doing wrong all the time. So I'm going to fix this one. This is obviously app comment domain entity comment, and the repository class is app comment infrastructure repository. I don't use the repository folder in this one. Comment repository. So yeah, we got this app comment domain entity comment, and this is the repository class that we made. These are the stuff that we want to have in our entity, and I think this should be okay. Which means that we should be able to create actually a fixture right now, because we don't. What we don't want to do is, in our repository test, we don't want to, how do you say it? Create the comment that we want to get. It should already be in the database, actually, before getting it. And that's the reason why we're using fixtures, because fixtures are actually loading in content in the database for us per test. And that's what we're going to do right now. So we're going to make a fixture that's going to be loaded inside the database. That's the reason why we all made this comments and the configuration and all. So the repository can actually get it. All right, so we're going to be using the fixture straight now. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a fixture called the comment fixture. This fixture, will, I believe, extend the fixture. Let me see real quick. Something with fixture. Doctrine, comma. Wait, why isn't Doctrine? Oh! Stupid queue, I forgot something again. Because we have implemented the fixtures bundle for Liip, but we don't have implemented the fixtures bundle from Doctrine. So, Doctrine fixtures bundle. So yeah, we really gotta get this, you know. If you cannot use fixtures in Doctrine if you do not have the, bundle installed. Stupid queue. All right. And now we should be able to extend the abstract fixture. There we go. It's not that hard. And it implements the ORM fixture interface. There you go. And because it does that, we have to get the method stubs. And this is what we have to create. There you go. This is a lot better when it happens. So basically what it does is you get this entity manager, and you can just load in a comment. So we can just make a comment, say comment equals new comment, and this thing will have. And now this is the reason why we're doing test-driven development, because I already know that I made a mistake earlier on. Because a comment should not have an ID. We should not give our comment an ID. The only thing our comment should have is the topic ID, the user ID, and the comment itself. So let's just say hi, Danny. Last thing being the comment itself. So let's alter this real quick. Oh, oops, my mistake. Why can I not import class? There we go. So this is going to go away, because even though this class will have a property ID, it will not be set with this constructor method because the ID will be given by Doctrine instead of us. Because Doctrine knows the IDs for us. So the comment fixture now works. We have made a comment, obviously. We're going to manager persist comment, and we're going to call manager flush, so it will save it. So if we load this comment fixture now within our test, like this, load fixtures, and then we call this the comment fixture class. Now we should be able to, once this is done, there will be a comment in the database every single time this test is run with ID 1 because it's the only thing, and with the stuff that we defined here on earlier, a hide any. So let's actually do that for now. Let's just check it out, you know. So let's just say a repository is this repository. That's fine. Let's just run it. Let's see if our configuration is working. Let's see if our entity is working. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going wrong. The reason is it cannot connect to our database. Why can it not connect to our database? Because even though our environment variable is set up, our PHPUnit doesn't know about it. So we're going to let it know about it. Env name equals database URL value equals that. Slash, there you go. I don't know why this is not, or filter read scheme document. Okay, interesting. It does the same for both, so I'm just gonna skillfully ignore it. Let's see if this works. No, it still doesn't because it wants my local IP and not my Docker IP. This is some Linux shit. If you work on a Mac, you can just put host.docker.internal in here, and you will always get the IP address of the host where your Docker is running on. So you don't have to manually put in your IP address from your root computer or your network. You can just use this and it works on a Mac. However, on Linux, it doesn't. So you will have to put your local IP address in here in order to make it work. So as you can see, now we get a different error. So the connection is working, but as you can see, the fixture is not registered as a fixture. That's something we need to do as well. We need to get towards here to our services test.yaml file and actually define this thing as a fixture. So let's just go here. Let's get this namespace and give it a tag. I believe it's a tag. And just give it the tag Doctrine ORM fixture. Now it will recognize this thing as a fixture, and now it will fill for some other reason. Yep. So what's next? You have requested a non-existent service test comment repository. Okay, that's further away. I mean, that's this part of the code. So let's just do this for now. Let's just run it. Then it will sort of fail because it doesn't do any assertions. So it says, it's not really filled, but you're not testing anything as well. However, we can check our database now. Refresh. Localhost, connect towards it. There we go. It's not that hard. Comment. ID, user ID. But, oh, there we go. Wow. Cache, guys, cache. So yeah, it actually created a database for us, like we said, with the comment stuff in it. So as you can see, this is a different comment from the adapter because I used a different type of ID. It's actually the in the user ID and topic ID than I used in the adapter. As you can see, this is literally the stuff that we added with the fixture. A hide any, and it has no more. If we run the test again, you will see that it still fails because we don't perform any assertion. But if I refresh this, there you go. So yeah, this works. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to load in our repository. This thing doesn't exist yet, so let's make it. We have this comment repository now. We have this comment. And I think I need to get rid of this one. Yep. So we got cat comment by ID, and we have this comment repository. So we want to define this comment repository as a service. So it's app/comment/infrastructure/comment repository. Yeah. So we have defined a service. We need to give it a class because it extends something else. It extends a Doctrine ORM entity repository, and it uses a factory. And this is something that's a little hard to understand maybe, but it's using a service, Doctrine ORM default entity manager get repository. It actually uses this method, factory method, to get the entity repository that we need. And it has obviously an argument because it handles the app comment domain entity comment. Now, what we want to do is this repository is in the prod namespace. So it's not public. It's actually private. So we want to, in services test, we want to have this public stuff. And that's the reason why I made the other namespace. So we can make like a test dot, what was the name? I thought it was test.comment repository. There you go. Test.comment repository. And we define this as an alias of the original one. So in your tests, you can use this repository and you will have access repository. Yeah. English. Comment repository. We will use this service, but it's being made public for test by using this alias. So if we going back to our repository now, and we use this service, it should actually do exist right now. Let me just refactor this real quick. Comment repository. And what we want to do is we want to actually get a comment out of the comment repository. And now, as you can see, there isn't a autocompletion over here. And that's the same reason, because we are actually getting a service, so it doesn't know which class it is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to say this is a comment repository interface. And this is something I wanted to do a little bit earlier, but obviously this repository can change. So what you want to do is you want to let it implement a comment repository interface, and that's part of the domain. So when you go over here, you say comment repository interface. You define this as an interface, and you say this interface has one function, public function, get comment by ID, integer ID, and it returns a comment. So if we ever decide not to use MySQL with Doctrine anymore, but something else like a graph database, we only have to create a new repository that implements this interface and use different input for different implementations for these functions, and then it will work. So this makes sure, this is called I think this is called interface segregation in Solid. This is one of the things that you want to do to to be able to easily change your code if necessary. So we got this comment repository interface now over here, and this actually also uses an interface. So we want to say, yo, repository equals this, and let's just say return repository, because we are going to define as a comment repository interface. There we go. Now this is all good in the hood, and now you will see that the autocompletion will use methods from the interface. So we can use get comment by ID. We want to have ID 1. And now we're going to the assertion. So we want to make sure that this assert equals A. And we say this, say comment. And this is the part in test-driven development where we say, okay, now you can make setters and getters. You don't want to make getters only for your tests, because you don't want to make production code just because you need it in tests. But since we are actually going to be using the getters as well in the you could argue that you do not need the getters from this class, but nonetheless I'm going to make them for now. Because for the purpose of showcasing, I will showcase this. But normally you could like use something called reflection to access these data without actually having to write code. Now reflection is considered pretty bad practice, because you should not have the option to access private properties from a class. You shouldn't. Reflection makes it so that you can actually do that. However, we made the trade-off that if you use reflection only in tests, then it keeps your production code much more clean. So we have like this guideline that we only use reflection in tests, and we get like the user ID, the topic ID, and the comment in the test through reflection instead of the getters. So we don't have to create these getters just because we have to use them in the tests. For now, however, I will just make them because it's a little bit easier to showcase for now. So we have made these getters. And we want to have comment get topic ID. And we say comment get user ID. And we say hi Danny in get comment. Now we run this test and see if it works. Uh-oh, I made a mistake. Look at that. It expects hi Danny with a small h, and I got a big H. Damn. It's a good thing, because we want to see our test fail before we actually make it work. Okay, now you can also argue that this should not be the same value because it could be mixed up. So let's just make this B and say the user ID is B now. Go to here, user ID is B, topic ID is A. Go for it. Does it work? And it works. Cool. As you can also see, this ID is also always 1 because we load the fixtures in. All right, now we have a working test for our repository itself. Something we could add later is another test that actually expects an exception thrown when there isn't a comment with specified ID. We will do that later. For now, we just will use the happy path only, because I want to make my functional test working first, and then I can make the other stuff. But for now, yeah. But keep in mind, we will actually make the exception later and the test for it. So yeah, in our, oh my god, in our command endpoint, we now have the ability to actually inject our repository. Public function construct. And what we want to do is we want to have a comment repository interface called comment repository. We have a private $comment repository. Jesus Christ, repository. Thank you. And this comment repository equals $comment repository. Now what you can do is you can say comment equals this comment repository, get comments by ID, comment ID, what we get from the route, and then, well, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just see if it actually works. Maybe we can just serialize it. Who knows? JSON encode. I think actually maybe this actually does the whole serialization for us. So let's just see what it does right now. And now we go back to our endpoint test. We run it. Let's see what it does. Uh-oh, something went wrong here. The controller for URI 1 is not callable. Controller comment endpoint has required constructor arguments and does not exist in the container. Did you forget to define the controller as a service? There we go. Symfony helps us a lot with this. First of all, we didn't inject the repository in our services. So let's do that first. Let's go and create a service for app comment infrastructure comment endpoint. And it has arguments. It's like a pirate day. And then it has a comment repository, which is an alias towards this service. And I don't know if this is enough. Let's see if this is enough. It could be that we have to tag it as a controller as well. Oh, it's not containing valid. Oh yeah, PHP and YAML. Sorry about that. All right, what's next? Field asserting that nothing matches JSON string comment. Well, this is obvious because first things first, our production database doesn't have. Well, it has right now the comment because we decided that it has it because of the test. But if we do another test that removes a comment, then our production database in our development environment doesn't have this data. So of course it cannot literally get the real thing. However, I think that this error is actually here because it cannot do it like the JSON response comment. I think it actually wants me to provide a JSON encoded array, a JSON encodable array. So let me just quickly do a test and say, yo, array equals an empty array, and let's say $array ID equal, no, let's say $user ID equals comment get user ID. Just for testing purposes, what happens if I do it like that? As you can see, it wants to do this. It actually finds the correct comment, by the way, now, but that's just plain luck because we this is the last test that we run and it's in the data is still in the database. I'll just do the quick version, but you can make this as complex as you want yourself. Yeah, there are a lot of ways to do this. There really are a lot of ways to do this. And a lot of them are a lot better than what I'm doing right now. But let's just keep it at this for now. Command array equals. Let me just make it like this real quick. Command array. And then let's make it so that we have a comment which is a new array. And then we have a ID. No, let's just do a user ID first, which is this. Oh my god, I'm disgusted by what I'm doing right now. I'm going to change this so bad soon. Get topic ID, get comment, and let's do it like that. Let's see how this looks. I think it will almost be correct. Comment, user ID, topic ID. Yeah, this is almost good. But the thing is, we're not actually. I don't have a getter for the ID yet. Function. What the heck? Get ID. String. Return this ID. Get ID. This is an integer, of course. And we will have an ID which equals to comment get ID. Again, just for demonstration purposes, not at all production viable code. Just saying. I really don't like this whole thing. So now we have this over here. As you can see, the only difference is that I'm actually expecting this instead of this, which is pretty funny. And the hi Danny. So I can actually make my response now conform to what I'm actually having in the database, because I'd rather keep my database the same, since it doesn't really matter which one we alter. So the topic ID was A, I believe. The user ID was B, and this is hi Danny. We run the test, and of course I mixed them up. I didn't. Oh, this is funny as well. Yep. So what's funny is that if we use an event, then you use the underscore. But if you use an entity, you want to have this camel casing. So the actual is actually better than what we expected. Now our expectation was pretty much a copy pasta from earlier on. So it doesn't really matter that we change this back to this. But however, the actual is actually a lot better than what we have in the expected. So let me just change this to this. Let me run it. And there you have it. A working test, which also means that if we go towards the browser now, go to localhost 8000/API/comment/comment/1, then of course it will have a connection refused because it cannot actually connect to the database. So let's get over here. Put the correct environment variable into our database URL, work it out, and it's still not working. And I need to check out why, because of course this is the wrong one. So it has to be that, and it should also be this for that, I think. 192.168.1.116. There we go. And as you can see, our endpoint, our REST endpoint, API endpoint is actually working and getting the comment now out of the data store. So what's funny is since we are using the same database almost in the adapter as what we had in the in this thing, I wonder, just wonder, I'm not saying this is going to work, but I wonder what happens if I go to the comments adapter right here, go to this functional tests over here, say, yo, add comment to data store. Let's ignore this load fixtures over here because we don't want to have an empty database. We want to actually add it. We want to add it. And we're going to request this and we say, hi, war puppy, with a capital W. We run this functional test. Two matches expected one. Yeah, that's actually good. Now I think it will be in the data store. And if I actually use my API now to get 2, as you can see, our API actually gets the comment. That's beautiful. Okay, so we have 2 separate stuff from each other, but we have connected it to the same data store locally. So as you can see, we can actually just add comments to the data store with the adapter and actually instantly get them out from the API without any hassle. Next time, I will be refactoring this lot to something that's a bit more better. And I will be also coupling everything towards AWS. So once we go back to our earlier made diagram over here, we've succeeded in making the adapter that's possible to actually make a comment inside the data store. We successfully have an API now that actually gets a specific comment with a specific ID from the data store. Next time, we will make an endpoint in the API that actually posts something towards AWS. Or, yeah, let's do AWS. And we'll configure AWS and the adapter so that it listens towards this event. So once we make an API call, it actually will update a data store. And you can see this whole process running together, which is really, really awesome. After that, I will make some alterations to be able to edit comments, to put some moderation things on it, maybe some authentication, and later, and that's like the whole strength behind this whole architecture. We will be able to actually make like a different adapter, say adapter stats, with a separate database. Oh, oops, that's not a database. This is a database. With a separate database. And a separate API even maybe, that listen to the same event that this listens to, but gets different data from it for its own database. So that's amazing, because now, apart from the comments itself, which are obviously stored in the database, you can probably say like, oh, I want this adapter in this database to actually store how many comments per day there are posted. And this is the whole strength behind this architecture, because you can use events on this event bus for multiple solutions, and you will always have the possibility to expand upon it. So yeah, that's something that I really want to do as well. So like I said, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next stream. Bye.